What's up, y'all? It's your girl Shantia, and I'm back with another banger, another word. Okay, now listen, y'all, I got a word for y'all today, but before we get into the word, I just want to tell everybody that the First Class Summit is officially sold out. Okay, the First Class Summit is officially sold out. However, you can still purchase virtual tickets by going to thefirstclasssummit.com. Or if you did want to get one VIP ticket or a business class ticket, the only way to do so is if you are a business owner and you would like to become a community sponsor, okay? But listen, y'all, I'm super excited. God blew my mind. It's only been a month since I launched the conference, and it's sold out. But anyways, y'all, so let's get into this word. And so the title of this word is God kept you in mind. God kept you in mind, okay? And listen, over this past weekend, there was a lot of things going on. Number one, my mood kept going up and down. Okay. And I didn't know why. I was feeling like moments where I was irritated over the simplest stuff. Okay. And so that was number one. But number two, the word that God kept highlighting this weekend was remember. Okay, and he just kept highlighting it. And so the scripture that he led me to is the story where it talks about Peninnah and Hannah. If you don't know the story, you can go to 1 Samuel 1, okay, but I'm gonna just give you a quick summary. So in 1 Samuel 1, we have Elkanah, okay? Elkanah had two wives. One was Peninnah, one was Hannah. Hannah was the first wife, Peninnah was the second. Hannah's womb, God closed Hannah's womb, so she was not able to have any children. Peninnah did have children, okay? And so year after year, Elkanah would go up and he would, give sacrifices and stuff, but he would give a portion to Peninnah and her sons, but he would give a double portion to Hannah because he loved Hannah, and also Hannah was not able to have any children, okay? And so listen, ain't it just like us for us to get jealous of somebody else having something that we don't have instead of focusing on the things that we do have, or instead of focusing on the portion that we do have? So long story short, Peninnah became jealous of Hannah because Hannah was receiving a double portion. Hannah, of course, felt some way about Peninnah because Peninnah had sons and Hannah was not able to conceive, okay? But what Peninnah ended up doing was Peninnah ended up constantly irritating Hannah and reminding Hannah of what she did not have, right? As I was reading the scripture. But the thing that I loved about this passage was I said, Peninnah was necessary for Hannah. Peninnah was necessary for Hannah. And so the question that I asked myself, that I'm asking you all, is what is your Peninnah in your life? Okay, for a long time, my Peninnah in my life was that I was not good enough. And in order for me to overcome that voice, in order for me to overcome that false, statement, I had to begin doing things to take risk. I had to begin doing things that were out of my comfort zone. I had to begin listening to God's voice when he told me, no, you already are valued. He said, you are accepted. You are loved. You are more than enough. I had to begin irritating the thing that was irritating me. And listen, child, the thing that I loved about Hannah was that the way that Hannah knew she could irritate the thing that was irritating her was that she constantly got in her secret place. She constantly got on her hands and knees to cry and to pray out to God. And so listen, child, the scripture talks about how Hannah went to God and she was crying from her deepest part, right? Venting to God, telling her, her anger, her anguish, all the things that she was going through. But there was a shift that happened in Hannah. And so when I was reading the scripture, I said, sometimes God will allow us to go through a season where he will not release the blessing because our intention behind what we're praying for is incorrect. And so, of course, as Hannah, you can only imagine that she's praying for a son because she could be proving to herself that she could, have children. She probably wants to prove to Peninnah, because Peninnah just been getting on her nerves, child, okay? Prove to Peninnah that she could have children. And she also felt felt like she wasn't good enough for Elkanah because she didn't feel validated or feel like she added anything to Elkanah because she was not able to conceive. But it wasn't until a shift happened in Hannah. It wasn't until Hannah got hungry for God and began to change the thing that she was praying for. And so finally she cried out to God in authenticity to tell God her anguish and the things that she was feeling on deep down on the inside of her. And she said, God, I don't just want a son, but I would love for you to grant me a son. And when you give him to me, I will give him back unto you. Listen, child. And in that moment was when God released her, was when God opened her womb for her to be able to conceive. And when I thought about that, I said, God kept Hannah in mind. Hannah thought that God had forgot this entire time, but God kept her in mind. And so this is a confirmation to somebody that God kept you in mind. God said, I remember everything that you prayed for. God said, I have a complete notepad. I like to see it that way. God has a complete notepad of all the things you prayed for, of all the things that you've done for him, of all the things that you've done for other people, all the things that you felt like have been overlooked, or all the gestures that you've made towards people, the kindness that you've granted people, the mercy that you've given yourself and others. God said, I have it all written down in my memory. God said, I kept you in mind this entire time. But sometimes God has to allow us to go through a season and allow a panina to enter our life so that the panina can begin to irritate us in a way where it births something new within us. God said, I will send a panina in your life to begin irritating you so that I can plant something within you, in order for something new to be birthed out of you. Listen, child. Don't get mad at panina. Don't get mad at the things that are trying to take you out. Don't get mad at the word curses. Don't get mad at what people are saying about you. Don't get mad at your past trying to creep back up. All of that is just confirmation that there's something down on the inside of you, and God is trying to do a shift in you. And so God said, welcome panina. Welcome the thing that is irritating you, because you have the power and the authority to irritate and cancel out the thing that's irritating you. And Hannah knew what that was. Hannah knew how to get in her secret place. Listen, child. And also, real quick, God had led me back to this dream that I had. Last week, I had a dream. I was in a setting full of people from my past, from elementary school, middle school, high school, and college, right? Everybody was mean mugging me, looking down on me, whatever, you name it. They were doing it in that dream. And I didn't know why. It was just me in the dream, that everybody was just me mugging. And so anyways, I'm, walking through the people, minding my business. And as soon as I get to a place, a space, which was really a place of elevation, there was like 5 steps, okay? There was 5 steps, and there was a man that was sitting on the steps. This was the only man that looked at me and he saw me for who I was. This was the only man that looked at me and smiled. And so as I began walking up the steps, when he reached out his hand to grab me, to pull me up, I reached out my hand to meet his hand so that I can be pulled up. My God, that's a word, okay? For those that need to receive the things that God is giving you. And so I was willing to receive what he was giving me, and I knew that was nothing but Jesus sitting on the steps, okay? But as I began walking up the steps, the people from my past began throwing balls at me, and the balls kept hitting only my right ear. It was about 8 balls, and they just kept hitting only my right ear. But guess what? In that moment, guess what I didn't do? I didn't turn back and react. My posture in the dream was peace. My posture in the dream was focusing on Jesus. My posture in the dream was focusing on elevating, was focusing on where I was going. And so even though, word curses were being thrown at me, or the things that people were trying to say, thinking that it was going to affect me, it never affected me. But yet all of that was just panina. All of that was just things that the enemy was trying to use to come against my identity, to come against where God where God is taking me. Listen, child. And so I say all that to say, because even in the dream, I didn't get distracted by who was talking about me. I didn't get distracted by how they were looking at me and viewing me. I didn't get distracted by that stuff, but I focused on where I was going. And for Jesus, for God, for the man sitting on the steps to see me, I said that was confirmation that God said, I remember you, my child. God said, I know they may not see you. I know they're still talking about you. I know they still don't understand your calling. I know they still don't understand your purpose, but one day they're going to see. One day they're going to see you for who I created you to be. One day they're going to respect you on the level that I called you to be. God said they're going to have to shift. God said their hearts are eventually going to have to be turned. But your job is to just stay focused on me. God said, because I never forgot you. God said, I never forgot your prayers. God said, I know everything that you desire. God said, I know everything that you want. I also know the things in your life that you're lacking. But God said, don't allow Panina, don't allow the voices to stop you or to remind you of what you don't have. Don't get distracted by what you don't have, but focus on the portion that you do have. Instead of Panina focusing on Hannah receiving a double portion, she should have been focusing on what she does have. Instead of Hannah focusing on what Panina has, Hannah should be focusing on the double portion that she does have. And so that's a word all in itself, is to just remind you to focus on the portion that God has given you. Don't compare yourself. Don't get jealous. Don't get distracted by what other people are receiving in this season, but continue focusing on the portion that God has granted you in this season. Because while you're over there trying, comparing yourself to what they have, somebody is wishing and praying that they're in the exact seat that you're in today. And don't get distracted by what they have, because what you're sitting in is an answered prayer. What you're sitting in is a miracle. God said, remember when you prayed for this. God said, remember when you cried out for this. God said, remember when you had to wait for this. Listen, child, I thought that story was so good and right on time. But it's confirmation of God saying, I kept you in mind. I kept you in mind this entire time. What you're sitting in is confirmation that God already remembered you. What you're sitting in today is confirmation that God kept you in mind. Listen, child, this was so good to my soul. And I know that it's going to bless somebody in this season, okay? So make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, rewatch it, share it, and have a blessed and prosperous day on purpose. I love you all. Until next time. Bye.